Welcome back to Student Hub Live. We're going to now talk about balancing study while pregnant or mothering young children. So something with all the chaos going on in many of our homes, I think will hopefully resonate with people. I'm joined by Sam Murphy, who is an Associate Head of School for Health, Social Care and Social Work, and is a sociologist by background who has a long-standing interest in women's experiences of pregnancy and childbirth. And Sharon Mallon is a senior lecturer in mental health and former OU student who graduated with an open degree and went on to do a PhD. We always love hearing stories like this, and is looking at student mental health. And 4 years ago, Sharon became a mother and started thinking about what the OU can do to help support students who also have parenting responsibilities. So, Sharon, let's kick off then with a question about the best things about being an OU student while you're also a parent. What's your take on
Well,
this?
I think it's just so flexible. I mean, we see photos all the time of students with, babies on their laps and laptops on their laps, and being able to balance your work around everything that you have to do with a small child is exactly what the Open University is for. So I can see why it's so attractive.
And we've been asking people for pictures of their study spaces today, and we've seen some incredibly innovative spaces that people have made for, studying when their kids are at school or even within the environment of children. So it is incredible how people can multitask and also get that mental space to multitask as well. So it is interesting. What first got you interested then in the experiences of student parents, Sam?
So I've always been interested in understanding women's experiences of pregnancy and childbirth, as you said. So actually looking at the experience of mature students while having children was sort of a natural extension. But one of the other things that I'm really interested in is what happens when pregnancy goes wrong, which is quite a taboo subject in our society. So I think if we can get conversations opened up about pregnancy, we can then go on to have conversations about, when it doesn't quite go to plan, when you might have a baby who's sick, or maybe even the baby dies. So that's really what got me involved in this study.
Sharon, what about for you? What were your areas of interest personally in the area?
Well, I noticed that we had a lot of students on the module that I run that were either young mothers or were pregnant, and it resonated with me when I got pregnant because I remember when I went on maternity leave saying to somebody, I'm going to write a book while I have this small child, I've got all this time. And really, that's not how it panned out. It was much more intense and much more, consumed the whole of me in all sorts of ways. And the tiredness was crazy. And so I really wanted to support students because I think that for me, this is a question of female empowerment. It is a fabulous time, and actually becoming a mother can often spur you on to wanting to be a student and want you to improve your career outlooks. But it's a time when often we underestimate how much it's going to consume us and how hard it's going to be. It is fabulous, but it is tiring. And I wanted really to support students because I think that we have a lot of female students at the Open University, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can for them to support them during what is an interesting time for them and an opportunity for them, but it's important we look after them.
No, absolutely. And never for me myself has there been a time I've experienced so much guilt as when I became a mother of trying to manage and do different things. Or what have you got on your lap there?
I
Is
have
that
got my study buddy to show you, which is
let's see.
our brand new kitten. This is
Oh,
Brutus,
oh, Brutus.
who
Brutus doesn't look very fierce at all, but I bet he packs a punch.
he will be when he's fully grown, I think, definitely. So, oh, he's off.
Joys of working with animals and children, and I know many people challenging with homeschooling, and we've met a few today. Find it hard with things going in and out the house, but it's great that it's so acceptable now. One of the things that I did want to pick up on was when we were talking about this session, we were talking about the difference between having children and the challenges that represented in terms of time, etc., with study, but also very specifically wanting to think about pregnancy and being a young mother, and perhaps some of the changes that happened within the person, hormonal changes, physical changes, and those practical changes that I think, like you, I thought I could do 2 masters when I had a young baby. I had no idea what it would involve. So I think sometimes there can be those various challenges. And this was quite interesting as well, because you were saying that many OU students don't sort of account for some of those things in terms of thinking, actually, I need a bit more help because, physically my body's doing something different, being pregnant, etc.
Absolutely. I think that that's something that it can take you by surprise, or even if it's your second pregnancy, it can take you by surprise. It can be quite different. And I think we did some research, Sam and I, with pregnant students and new mums. And one of the things that they often expressed was that they should be able to cope, or they thought they would be able to cope, and that they didn't want to bother their tutor, and that it wasn't necessarily something that was concerned with their OU studies. But we really want to encourage students that, who are studying, when they think it's appropriate, and when they're comfortable, to tell their tutor. And certainly if it's starting to impact on your studies or your ability to make deadlines, absolutely reach out to your tutor, let them know. There are accommodations that can be made, extensions can be found for work that you need to do. And it's absolutely okay as a new mum to ask for help. You may cope well in the early months because babies are a little bit more amenable, shall we say, in those early months. When they get bigger and they start to move around the room independently and be into things, and you have to prevent them from causing damage to themselves, it can be harder to fit in your studies. So absolutely, the Open University is here to support you. You just need to reach out and let us know, and we'll work around that as best we can.
And it's very much about being flexible as well. We've asked our students at home, have you fed a baby with one hand and had a laptop in the other? 38% say yes, they have. So I think it's something that many people can identify with, but perhaps some can't. And that's why it's good to be kind to other people on forums, etc., or people who maybe are feeling a bit overwhelmed or behind. The one thing, though, that while OU study is flexible, I know that babies are possibly even more flexible. They certainly count on them arriving on time. I've had students saying, well, I have an exam then and a baby due then. And so it's very, very important to be able to let the Open University know, isn't it? Once the baby's here, then, what are some of the challenges that people have told you about in your own research that's been quite specific to having a very young baby?
I think one of the things is time management. So you have an idea of, oh, well, the baby will sleep for hours at a time, but they don't always. Sometimes you have babies that wake up and catnap almost, and some you sleep for hours. So you've got to be a real opportunist in the time that you study. If you see an opportunity to have 10 minutes, do it. And 10 minutes might not be ideal for you. You might be one of these people needs an hour at a time. But actually, if 10 minutes is all you've got, make the most of it.
Absolutely. One of the things I really loved when I was doing childhood studies was this notion of a good enough mother, and that things don't have to be perfect, but sometimes just doing something, even if it's not as ideal as you'd like to, is interesting. Let's see what people say the best thing about studying with children is for them, because we asked our audience, and one of the things that they've said is studying together seems to be the real key thing. And I know this was something that we spoke about in our discussions about many students wanting to study to set a good example for their children, and to be able to show their children that these things are possible. And so to be able to include them is just wonderful. The kids encouraging them, having downtime with the kids as well. So maybe a nice reward, no childcare debt. So there's some very practical things, and also being a good role model. I think, Sharon, this was something that you found, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It can be incredibly difficult when you become a new mum. Your whole identity is then consumed by that role. And this is something that is for you. And it can be, I did a module while I was breastfeeding my little baby, and it kept my brain ticking over, and it gave me something that was just for me. And I would encourage, women who are studying at the OU to negotiate with their partners, and that's okay to say, I need a little bit of time to do this, and it's for me. I mean, the examples you had from students there are great. In our research, we had one woman who would take her small kids out when they were just a little bit older than toddler stage, and try and tell them about the rocks they were seeing, because she was learning about it on her module. And they maybe didn't understand it all, but it was a really great way of her reinforcing her own learning and remembering what she just read.
And there was a wonderful thing there about, having downtime with the kids. So one of the great things about studying is having that downtime, that you can literally just close your books or your study space, and then be able to go and spend time with them. But equally, sometimes that can involve different conflicts within the family. And you mentioned the notion that, identities can change from being a single person.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you become a mother, and those various identities can take a while to renegotiate, I guess. But how would you recommend people think about making space then for those personal relationships while having space for themselves as a developing student?
I Go on, Sharon.
Go ahead, Sam.
I think it's about understanding the need for it is the first step, and then you can start to think about talking to your partner and to your family about how you manage your changing identity. I think when you become a parent, you decide to become a parent, you think it's just going to be me plus the baby. You're not really prepared for how big a change it is for your identity. But I think, my children are adults now, but my mothering identity changes every month really as they grow older. And so I think it's about being open and honest with your partner, if you have one, or with your family, that there are those needs, and that you are clear that this is partner time, this is family time, and just making those spaces. And it is hard. We've all got such competing demands on us.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's quickly end by taking a look at some of the advice that people wish they had known. So let's look at our word cloud to see what you wished you'd known. And a really key thing here is setting some me time aside. I think that's one of the key things I've certainly found challenging, but also from my own experience, that me time was often the very first thing to go as soon as someone flooded anything or destroyed something, or there was some other catastrophe that meant that my attention had to be averted. But other things here are trusting your instincts. It will be fine. Get some sleep. So lots of things about being kind. And I know that was one of the key messages that you wanted to share with students. So I wonder if you can sort of both give your take-home message for students who may be in this position, and what you'd recommend based on all of the knowledge you've accrued on this area.
Well, for me, the thing that I most wish I'd known was that you have to find your own path, and that you need to be mindful of the judgment that is coming at you from every direction when you become a new mum. Society has an opinion about you, your relatives will have an opinion about you, but what you need to do is find your okay place. What are you okay with, and what do you need to keep yourself healthy and happy and well? Because that's what the baby and a young child needs too. It needs a mother that's functioning and has a sense of well-being. That's so just let all the voices go and try and listen to your inner voice.
Brilliant. And what about
No,
you,
I
Sam?
agree. Yeah, everything that Sharon said. Remember that the university isn't going to go away. If you have to take time out, we're still going to be here for you, ready for when you're ready to come back. But also be your own best friend. If you've got a problem, don't think about it from your perspective. Maybe think, what would you tell your best friend if they had that same problem? Because you'd probably be kinder to them than you are for yourself. So yeah, look after yourself, be your own best friend, and keep your eye on the end goal. And if it takes a little bit longer than you first thought, that's fine.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for a really wonderful session. I think that's given people lots to think about. HJ, how's everyone back at home? I just want to show some study spaces, but how's everyone feeling? We all still with us?
Yeah, so everyone's doing really well, and it just amazes me how people have been rising to the challenge of homeschooling and having children at home while trying to study and work at the same time. So a lot of people are saying, make sure you be clear to your family what time is yours and what you're going to be doing in that time. And a lot of people are saying it's nice to share the time with their children as well. So explain what they're doing with the children, or having that shared study time together. So it's really great to see how people are rising to the challenge and really embracing it and using it as an opportunity as well.
Oh, that's super. That's absolutely brilliant. Well, let's take a look at a couple more study spaces if we can quickly, because we've had loads coming in and I'm determined to get through them all because they're so brilliant. One we've got here is from Zion and Swindon, which is a really lovely study space. I think actually we'll come to Zion's in just a second. Let's look at Christina in Pontypridd in South Wales. So Christina was watching on the 18th, and she says, I can't find the details of which email address to send it to, but let me know if I've got it. Well, you have got it right, and we've got your picture, and wonderful it is, Christina. It looks like a really lovely study space there. Gemma has given a picture of her study space, and this is, she says, when my second daughter left for university, I decided to redecorate her room into a study for myself, and also a room for my youngest daughter to use for homework. I wanted a cosy but productive space, and a space I enjoyed being in, which is lovely. Joanne has a mess from Manchester, has a messy combined work from home and study space. So that doesn't look too messy to me by my standards, but a big bonus point there for having our Student Hub Live in the background there as well. So we'll show you some more study spaces at the beginning of our next session, but we're going to have a quick break and take another of our campus tours, this time around the Legacy Garden. Oh, and it was sunny then when we did this, a long time ago, but well, not that long ago, but it feels like it really does. I'll be back for our next session. We're going to talk more on social media, another key thing that I know is interesting to you guys, and Azuma will be talking with me through that, but let's take a look at the Legacy Garden first.